Hello. Now, this video is going to be our analysis of the previous year questions being asked in ethics. Now, if you haven't gone through the syllabus of ethics or you haven't seen our discussion on the syllabus of ethics, I request you to go check that video first because I want you to understand the syllabus and have a grasp on the syllabus before you look at the analysis of it. Right? And I understand that a lot of people, especially the people who are giving this examination for the very first time, आपके लिए ये चीज़ analyze करना थोड़ा difficult होगा because you might not be very familiar with the subject itself. And that's where I'll sort of try to teach you how to analyze question papers from that UPSC perspective. But for that, I really want you to go ahead and read the syllabus. Now, moving on. Looking at these questions from 2013 to 2021, it's been 8 years that UPSC has been asking these questions, which is a big enough sample size for us to understand कि UPSC पूछने की कोशिश क्या कर रहा है. Now, when we were discussing the syllabus, we understood three core things. The first thing is that UPSC is trying to understand your unique approach. Second was to see how you handle situations with moral crisis or ethical crisis, and how do they do that? They do that by asking you questions which are related to or derived from case studies. These are the three core objectives that UPSC is trying to do when we read the syllabus. Now, the other thing that you need to understand is पूरे examination का objective क्या है? पूरे examination का objective, the whole idea of writing the prelims, mains and going to the interview is for UPSC to take suitable candidates for the civil services. Right? Candidates that they deem suitable. And that is the reason why ethics as an exam was introduced in 2013. Because this examination is like the main litmus test when it comes to gauging the suitability, gauging the attitude, the aptitude of a to-be civil servant. Right? So let's start the analysis. Now, the very first thing that we notice when we go through all the question papers, all the questions that have been asked is that ये जो syllabus दिया गया है, जो syllabus UPSC ने दिया है ethics का, and the asked questions that are being asked have a very different tone to them. So the questions already have certain terminologies given, but उन questions जो questions पूछे जा रहे हैं, जो syllabus में जो terminologies हैं और जो questions पूछे जा रहे हैं, there is no direct linkage to it. Direct derivations नहीं है. अगर आपको non-partisanship, इंटीग्रिटी, ऑनेस्टी, ये सारी चीज़ें दी हैं तो क्वेश्चंस में आपको इनका डेफिनेशन नहीं पूछा जा रहा है. अगर आपको ह्यूमन वैल्यूज़ के बारे में दिया हुआ है, अगर आपको रोल ऑफ फैमिली एंड सोसाइटी के बारे में बोला हुआ है, दे आर नॉट आस्किंग यू डायरेक्टली कि इफ देयर इज अ टॉपिक दैट सेज रोल ऑफ फैमिली इन सोसाइटी, गिव अस द रोल ऑफ फैमिली इन सोसाइटी. Once you go through all the questions, you would understand that most of the questions that are given are practically applicable questions. They are derived from the syllabus, but not directly taken from the syllabus. So ये जो हमारा आइडिया होता था ना कि हम एथिक्स पेपर के लिए क्या करेंगे, हम हर टर्म का एक गूगल से डेफिनेशन निकाल देंगे और वही टर्म का डेफिनेशन हम एग्जामिनेशन में लिख के आएंगे. ये अप्रोच नहीं चलेगा, बिकॉज ये क्वेश्चंस पूछते ही नहीं है यूपीएससी वाले. You would see that, let's take the example of integrity, which is part of our aptitude. So in that, you would see that this question on integrity, which says integrity without knowledge is weak and useless, but knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful. In this question, you're not supposed to define what integrity is. In this question, on the test of integrity, one of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. Again, you're not supposed to define integrity. Same question. Integrity is a value that empowers the human being. Justify with suitable illustrations. You're not supposed to define integrity. So most of the questions you'll see here, they're either direct interpretation or practical application of the topics being given in the syllabus. Syllabus के topics का application पूछा जा रहा है questions में. Syllabus के topics का definition नहीं पूछा जा रहा है. ये इतना सिंपल पेपर नहीं है जो बहुत जगहों में बना रखा है. The whole idea is understanding. That's what we saw in the syllabus. Now moving on, the second most important thing is the type of question being asked. So when an examiner is framing a question to you, a question will always have two portions to it. The first is, what is the core value of the question? Core value of the question, which means that examiner यहाँ पे किस टॉपिक की बात कर रहे हैं. यहाँ पे जो टॉपिक की बात हो रही है वो उस टॉपिक का व्हाट इज द मेन पर्पस ऑफ आस्किंग दैट क्वेश्चन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, in this question, let's take this question itself. Integrity without knowledge and knowledge without integrity. So the core value of the question is integrity and knowledge. The second portion of a question is always the core ask of the question. So core value of the question and core ask of the question. Core ask क्या होता है? Core ask are of two types. The first type is that the question is person centric, that they are asking the person. And the second is objective centric, that they have an objective behind the question. Person centric questions में क्या होगा? You see, all the places where I've highlighted in yellow, they are the terms either related to you or yourself or your interpretation. Do you notice? How do you explain? These are person-centric questions. Person-centric questions में आपको अपना personal opinion देना होता है. In this question, you are supposed to give your own example. यहाँ पे अगर आप generic चीज लिख के आएंगे, जो कि सामने वाला भी लिख के आएगा, तो वहाँ पे गलती ये होगी कि examiner will understand that this is not your interpretation. This is some bookish answer that you've given which does not have any interpretation or input from your side. वो नहीं करना है. Objective based questions क्या होते हैं? Objective based questions are the questions which ask you to discuss, analyze, critically analyze, evaluate. These are objective based questions. यहाँ पे आपको एक neutral position लेके एक neutral answer देना होता है. Where you weigh in both the sides of the questions, where you weigh in every single parameter that is given in the question, and then you give your analysis of it. Right? So the first part is understanding the core value of the question. The core value is क्या पूछा गया है question में. And second is the core ask. किससे पूछा गया है? Is it a person-centric question or is it an objective-centric question? Now in ethics paper you would see that about 65 to 70% of the questions are person-centric questions. Remember, when we read the syllabus itself, we saw that it is asking the candidate's approach. So ये है वो candidate's approach. Whenever there is a question which is asking you directly, any question that talks about you, your understanding, all of this, what do you understand by this statement in the present day scenario? They are asking your own interpretation of the question itself. Right? So whenever there is a question like this which is asking for your understanding, वो एक personalized answer होगा. वो एक unique answer होगा which is unique to your understanding of that topic. ठीक है? We understood this part? Now, the third part is the conventions that UPSC has made which is outside the given syllabus. And here you would understand that there are two core conventions that UPSC has done. The first convention is to ask you based on quotations. अब quotations को आप moral thinkers के साथ confuse मत कीजिएगा. Moral thinkers, moral philosophers ने जो हमको दिया है वो है उनकी understanding. उन्होंने बहुत सारे thought experiments किए, उन्होंने different scenarios को लिया and उन scenarios के ऊपर उन्होंने एक understanding present करी हमें. ठीक है? But what happens when you are giving quotations? In quotations, most of the questions that are being asked to you are asked based on your own understanding or your own interpretation of the quotations. अब in quotations में क्या होता है? There are times when they might not mention who this quote is from, or even if they mention who this quote is from, you might not be aware of who this person is or what this quote means or where this quote is from. Now in both these cases, what happens is you are confused to a point where you don't know कि इस quotation को हम लिखें कैसे. And ये हम deal करेंगे when we talk about the anatomy of a quote. During our classes, when we reach the class where we do anatomy of quotes and case studies, we will see how you break down a quotation, how you break it down to its core values and how you interpret it from your perspective. But what I want you to understand here is that UPSC has made this convention where every year they have asked you a quotation based, at least one or more than one questions which are quotation based, where you have to give your understanding of the quotations. They don't fall under any of the ethical values. They don't fall under moral thinkers. Even in places where they've asked you about moral thinkers, for example, if they've asked you about a quote given by APJ Abdul Kalam, you have to give your interpretation of it. Right? So now that is about the convention. The first convention was the quotation. The second is UPSC, even in ethics paper, leans towards asking social and societal based questions. So in this portion, they will ask you questions which are not even direct derivatives of ethics itself. For example, if you look at this, social based questions, you'll find that questions like that talk about sexual violence, questions that talk about anger, questions that talk about, this is a very good example of it. Young people with ethical conduct are not willing to come forward to join active politics. Suggest steps to motivate them to come forward. Now this question अगर आप ऊपर से देखें, doesn't fall into any other topic from the syllabus. But essentially what is it trying to say? It is trying to say that there is certain prevalence of corruption or certain prevalence of some negative emotions attached to active politics, because of which the young people with ethical conduct are not going to join them. Right? So these are current social based questions, social and societal based questions. ये contemporary questions जो हैं और जो quotation based questions हैं, they are conventions that are being set by UPSC. Right? So we can easily put this in under the syllabus itself कि ऐसे questions आएंगे, because these are the questions that keeps getting they keep asking you questions like these, which might not fall into any particular category of the syllabus but are derived from the syllabus itself. So these two conventions are being drawn, quotations as well as social and societal problem based questions. The next portion that we see when we analyze the question paper is the portion or the marks being allotted to each and every single portion of the syllabus. And you'll be surprised to note that हमको लगता है कि ये जो ethics का पेपर है थोड़ा philosopher और थोड़ा thinker heavy पेपर है, but ऐसा नहीं है. 50% of the paper, 50% of the questions that come from the public administration side. It comes from two topics: the ethics and values in public administration and probity in governance. These are the two places where 50% of the question comes from. The rest of the 50 comes between the ethics, the psychology part of it, the ethics and morality part of it. So 50% of the paper is the PubAd part. Now, iska another interpretation is that about 70% of the questions are practical questions. The questions that are coming from the property and governance, the questions that are coming from ethics and values in public administration, as well as the quotation and societal based problems. ये किसी में भी आपको कोई स्टैटिक पोर्शन नहीं पूछा गया है, कोई थ्योरी नहीं पूछी गई है, ना तो जेम्स मिल के बारे में पूछा गया, ना रूसो के बारे में पूछा गया, ना कांत के बारे में पूछा है, कुछ नहीं. इट्स अ डायरेक्ट इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ एवरीथिंग दैट you've read. उनका प्रैक्टिकलिटी आपसे पूछा गया है. A good example of that would be, if you look at this, values and ethics in public administration. In this portion, what are they talking about? वहाँ पे they have mentioned one topic called conscience. Conscience as a source of ethical guidance, right? But here the question are, what do you understand by the voice of conscience, अंतरात्मा की आवाज, and how do you prepare yourself to heed the voice of conscience? Crisis of conscience. Similarly, means and end question. Questions about accountability. These are all questions that ask you the interpretation of everything that you've read. All of them. Even in questions that they've given quotes, even in questions that they've asked you direct questions like ethical management and management of ethics, even in these questions you're not supposed to define it. You're supposed to give examples, and through examples you have to differentiate between these two terminologies. So ये जितने भी 70% of the paper है, which is a direct application of all the static portion. So we are understanding there are certain things that are very clear now. 70% of the paper is person-centric. Most of the questions are being asked to you directly. 70% of the questions are again from practical application-based questions. These are practical application-based questions. And finally, I come to these blue highlights that I've given you. The blue highlights talks about examples. They talk about real life examples or examples from modern day context or examples to explain the answers. This is one portion that I've seen most of my students and most of you aspirants out there miss out on completely. ये जो real life examples आपको exam से पूछे गए हैं, and these are being asked in every single question where applicability is required. ये अगर आप examination के time पे अगर आप अपना जब आंसर लिखने तब अगर आप सोचने लगोगे ना कि रियल टाइम एग्जाम्पल देने के लिए, ना तो आपका पेपर कंप्लीट होगा ना तो वो आंसर होगा ढंग से. ये रियल लाइफ एग्जाम्पल्स तब आते हैं जब आप थॉट एक्सपेरिमेंट्स करते हो while you're conducting the class, while you're doing the classes, and while you're making your notes, while you're discussing these topics. That is where you form these real life examples. That is where you form this understanding where you can apply it to your own real life. Remember, ethics and morality as a subject might exist in UPSC right now, but ये चीज हमको बचपन से सिखाते हुए आ रहे हैं हमारे पेरेंट्स, हमारी सोसाइटी, हमारा कल्चर, एवरीथिंग. What to do, what not to do, everything. So real life examples are galore. As long as you give it the time to think about it, as long as you give it the time to sit and analyze every single portion through your real life lens. Right? And then final big elephant in the room are the case studies. Now, what you would see here is that from all the questions that we've discussed and all the things that we've analyzed so far, we've understood one particular thing, which is that अगर अपनी understanding नहीं है इस subject की, अगर अपनी खुद की अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड डेरिवेशन एंड इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं है, तो आप आंसर्स नहीं कर पाएंगे. एंड उसका सबसे बड़ा एप्लीकेबिलिटी कम्स टू केस स्टडीज. Now, each and every single case study is a specific situation where you have to imagine yourself in a position of a civil servant or in a position of power and then give your interpretation, your solution to that subject. अब यहाँ पे you can't give theories and theorems and certain hacks and certain ideas that जो आप पहले से लेके आए हो. ये प्योर एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस होते हैं जहाँ पे आपको अपनी एप्लीकेबिलिटी और अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग देनी है. So the whole question paper, all the questions being asked from 2013 to 21 are geared towards trying to see that understanding of you. Like trying to see where does your understanding lie in all this paper. And they do it completely through the case studies and partially through all these questions being asked from the static portion. So this stands as our analysis of the question paper. Now I have differentiated all these question paper based on topics, and I will make this PDF available on my Telegram group, where the link of it will be provided in the description of the video itself. But what I want you to see now is go back and try to formulate this analysis for every single previous year question paper. Not just ethics, but other question papers as well. Because I understand that a lot of times you are confused, especially the people who are giving this examination for the first time, that how do I derive my understanding from previous year question papers when I haven't read the topic itself. You have to understand what is UPSC trying to ask. You don't have to know the topic, you have to understand the tone of the question. I told you, the core value of the question and the core ask of the question. अगर आपने ये दोनों चीजें analyze कर लेंगे, तो आप कोई भी question analyze कर पाओगे, कोई भी question किसी भी topic का. Okay, so this is our understanding of the question paper. Now, in the next video, I will give you the full rundown of the classes. I'll give you how the classes are going to be conducted, what I expect from you when it comes to these classes, and what are the portion of syllabus and how we will be covering it. So I hope to see you in the next class. And if you have any doubts regarding these questions or any questions, make sure you leave it down in the comments below so that I can look at it and address it in the next video itself. I hope to see you in the next class, and all the best for your examination.